Good morning, everyone. My name is Pallavi Vadkar, and I'm really pleased to be speaking with you today. I'll be talking about how three of the Victorian child safe standards can be practically and meaningfully implemented in early childhood education and care settings. The three standards I've chosen are Standard 1, which is culturally safe environments, Standard 3, child and student empowerment, and Standard 7, child focused complaint processes. Now, these aren't just checkboxes or administrative tasks. These standards came about after the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse, which exposed the serious failure of many organizations in protecting children. As a result, Victoria introduced the Child Safe Standards to ensure that all institutions working with children embedded child safety into everything they do, structurally, culturally, and rationally. In early childhood setting, we work with the youngest, most impressionable members of our community. So, we have a special responsibility, not just to protect children, but actively build environments where children feel respected, safe, and empowered. These standards also align with the Early Years Learning Framework version 2.0, which puts children's rights, agency, and secure relationships at the center of early learning to the Department of Education 2022. They reflect broader global commitments like the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, particularly Article 12, which upholds children's right to have to say in matters that affect them, and Article 19, which ensures their protection from harm. So, our role as our role as educators is not just to supervise safety, it's to live and breathe it in a way we talk, plan, listen, and build relationships. Now, the purpose and significance of the selected standards. Let's now take a closer look at each of these three standards and why they are so important in early learning environments. Standard 1, culturally safe environments. These standards ask us to create environments where every child's cultural identity is not only recognized but respected, affirmed, and protected. In early childhood, children are still forming their sense of self in their language, traditions, or ways of being aren't visible or valued in their learning space. They may internalize a sense of shame or not belonging. Cultural safety is more than celebrating Harmony Day or putting a few diverse books on the shelf. It's about embedding cultural respect in our everyday practices and questioning those stories and ways of knowing are included and those are left. For Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander children, refugee families, or multilingual communities, cultural safety provides a foundation for well being, learning, and trust. Standard 3, Child and Student Empowerment. This standard centers on children's agencies, their right to make choices, be listened to, and take part in decisions that affect them. In early learning, this might mean inviting children to help make classroom rules, giving them real choices in play, or encouraging them to speak up when something feels wrong. We often say we value children's voices, but in reality, routines and curriculum pressures can sometimes silence those voices. True empowerment means respecting even the smallest choices a child makes and recognizing that their feelings are valid. Next is Standard 7, Child Focused Complaints Processes. This standard is about making sure children have safe and accessible ways to express if they feel unsafe, uncomfortable, or unhappy. For young children, especially those still developing language, this is tricky. A complaints form or suggestion box isn't going to work for a 3-year-old. Instead, we need to build strong, trusting relationship and offer many different ways through pictures, play, emotions, and behavior for children to share how they feel. It also means taking those feelings seriously, even when they don't sound like formal complaints. Together, these three standards create a holistic, relational approach to child safety, one that's grounded in respect, agency, and belonging. To support these standards, we have a range of important resources. These include the Victorian Child Safe Standard Guide, the Code of Ethics by Early Childhood Australia, the National Quality Framework, especially Quality Area 2 on children's health and safety. These policies give us great starting point. For example, the Child Safe Standards Guide encourages things like using home language on signage, working closely with families, and celebrating cultural events. However, these documents also have limitations. For Standard 1, they suggest visible inclusion but don't always guide us on how to unpack bias or power in our settings. As Gopi and Millie note, inclusion without reflection often leads to tokenism. The EYLF promotes children's agency, but in practice, many services still have adult led routines that don't leave room for children's voices. For Standard 7, services may rely on generic posters or boxes, but this doesn't help if a child is too young or scared to speak up. So, the policies are helpful, but they rely on us as educators to apply them thoughtfully, ethically, and in culturally responsive ways. Practical application in a hypothetical ECEC setting. Let's imagine a long daycare service in suburban Melbourne. There are 70 children aged birth to 5, and the families come from many different backgrounds, including Aboriginal, refugee, and multilingual communities. Here's how the three standard could come to life. For Standard 1, the service starts each day with a child led acknowledgement of country. Signs and books are in multiple languages. Cultural celebrations are planned with families, not just for them. Educators reflect on bias, asking whose knowledge is missing, whose voices are being centered. For Standard 3, children help make group rules like we take turns or we speak kindly. They choose what to play, who to play with, and how to solve social challenges. Tools like emotion charts and puppets help them name feelings. Storybooks such as Your Body Belongs to You help teach consent and personal boundaries. For Standard 7, educators introduce themselves with child friendly posters. They say things like You can talk to me, a quiet space is available with books, and a I feel box where children can draw or leave a note about how they are feeling. Educators observe closely for nonverbal cues, shifts in play, or withdrawal, because those can be signs of distress too. This is what a whole of service approach looks like, where safety is not a task but a way of being. Barriers and supports to implementation. Of course, meaningful implementation takes work, and there are real challenges. Educators often feel overwhelmed by time pressures, ratios, and paperwork. Many feel underprepared to discuss trauma or explore cultural bias. There's also emotional fatigue, especially when supporting children with complex needs or disclosures. But we are not alone in this. Supports that makes a difference include ongoing professional development in trauma-informed and anti-bias practice, leadership that prioritizes staff well-being and open, reflective dialogue, mentoring and team check-ins to debrief tricky situations, using visual and emotional tools that help children communicate in their own ways. As Epley and Soto Manning point out, we can't create emotionally safe spaces for children if we, as educators, don't feel emotionally safe ourselves. Working with these standards has genuinely changed how I see my role as an educator. At first, I saw child safety mainly as physical ratios, logged grades, first aid, but now I understand it's also emotional, cultural, and rational. Going forward, I will truly listen to children, not just to their words, but to their tone, their play, and their silences. Engage families not just as clients, but as partners with rich knowledge and experience. Take time to reflect on how my own background shapes the way I see children and families. create environments where children know their voices matter and where I am someone they can trust. To me, that's what being a child safe educator really means. So, in closing, Standard 1 remind us to make each child's culture visible, valued, and respected, not just during special events, but in our everyday curriculum, relationships, and environments. Standard 3 calls us to empower children, to trust their voices, support their autonomy, and teach them that their feeling, choices, and boundaries matters. Standard 7 urges us to build complaint processes that children can truly access, understand, and trust, even if they are nonverbal, shy, or still learning how to express themselves. But beyond each standard on its own, what really stands out is the way they work together. When children feel culturally safe, they are more confident to speak up. When they are not empowered, they are more likely to understand their rights. And when complaint systems are child focused and responsive, children know they are not alone. These standards ask us to move beyond compliance. They ask us to build a culture of safety, one that lives in our values, our language, our classrooms, and our relationships. As educators, we need to keep asking ourselves, are we creating spaces where every child feels truly seen and safe? Are we listening when curiosity and care, even when children speak in drawing, gestures, or silence? Are we willing to reflect on our own assumptions, to challenge systems that exclude, and to hold ourselves and others accountable with compassion? Ultimately, the impact of these standards isn't measured in policies on a shelf. It's measured in the eyes of a child who feels safe to be themselves, to ask questions, to express hurt, or to trust the adults around them. This is the kind of educator I aspire to be, one who doesn't just protect children from harm, but stands beside them with empathy, courage, and unwavering respect. Thank you so much for your time and for your commitment to making early childhood education a truly safe and empowering place for all children.